So the basic setup of Motor City is Alan Richardson plays a guy named John who's an ex-con that's just trying to live a normal life with his girlfriend, played by Shailene Woodley, when someone from their past, a delightfully evil Ben Foster, sets him up, puts him behind bars, and takes the woman for himself. Don't like that very much, and it kind of becomes the sort of action movie that you would typically expect after being told that premise. But there is one thing that's very different about this movie, and it's the fact that there's no spoken line of dialogue. Well, that's not entirely true. There are some words spoken here and there, but nothing super substantial, and whenever there are moments where characters are talking, the camera will usually be placed behind glass, for example, or the soundtrack will start popping off, so you don't actually hear what's being said. It's actually a really fun gimmick, and it does set the film apart from other movies like this, even though it's not necessarily the first one to do it. Having no dialogue really does force the filmmakers and the actors to really put a strong emphasis on visual storytelling, and you really kind of have to roll with what the film is trying to do for a bit, because, especially during the first half, it really does feel like it's trying really hard to find a specific rhythm that it can go with. But man, there is a jailbreak sequence that happens around halfway through this movie that genuinely took my breath away. The editing, the staging, the way it really puts you in the moment, the emotional drive of it, the use of the song Nights in White Satin by the Moody Blues, it all worked effortlessly. And that whole sequence, all the way through to the end, I was in love. It's like the film itself just really locked in and was off to the races. I really like action movies that have an undercurrent of melancholy to them, and the second half of this film really leans in on that. There is an elevator fight scene that I think is one of the all-time great elevator fight scenes. Really brutal stuff. And I also love the ending. Obviously, I'm not going to give anything away as to what happens, but the moment I realized what it is that they were doing, my jaw dropped because I just couldn't believe that they were actually going to commit to this. And I'm sure it won't work for everybody. It does take a big swing, especially with like one production element that I think could possibly come off as hokey if you're like not buying into the story or the film itself, but I really dug it. I also want to note that during that prison break sequence that I mentioned earlier, you see that the place is named Brubaker State Prison, and it felt like such a deliberate name drop. Ed Brubaker, in case you didn't know, is a comic book writer. He does a lot of crime genre stuff. This feels like something that would be up his alley. So when I saw that, I figured, oh, this might be an adaptation of a graphic novel that I just never heard of. But it's not. It's an original script. But it feels like it could be an adaptation of a graphic novel. So I feel like if you go into it with that mindset, it would be much easier to buy into all the nuances of how they utilize the gimmick. I really enjoy Alan Richardson as an action performer. I think his work on Reacher has really allowed him to perfect how to utilize his physicality within a performance, and it's put to amazing work here while still not feeling like he's just repeating himself. And the director of the film, Patsy Panciaroli, I've seen his previous films, Greedy People, which is a pretty amusing dark comedy, and Old Henry, which I think is a really terrific revisionist Western with a really fantastic lead performance from Tim Blake Nelson. I would highly recommend that one. But I think Motor City is definitely his best film so far. I really enjoyed this one a lot. And those are my thoughts on the film. So if you've seen them, then feel free to let me know what you thought of it in the comments.